A surprise. That's what the Danish royal house is calling US President Donald Trump's abrupt cancellation of a state visit in 2 weeks' time. It came after Mr. Trump floated the prospect of the US buying the autonomous Danish territory of Greenland, an idea that Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said was absurd. Well, Mr. Trump announced the cancellation of the visit, of course, on Twitter, where he said, "Denmark is a very special country with incredible people, but based on the Prime Minister's comments that she would have no interest in discussing the purchase of Greenland, I will be postponing our meeting scheduled in 2 weeks for another time." The Prime Minister, he says, was able to save a great deal of expense and effort for both the US and Denmark by being so direct. I thank her for that and look forward to rescheduling sometime in the future. Well, I'm joined now from Greenland by Stefan Kretz, who's the chief US correspondent for the Danish Broadcasting Corporation. Stefan, thank you very much for being with us here on Impact. Mr. Trump is saying we've saved ourselves a lot of money, but it might not be seen that way in Denmark, I guess.
Well, I would say that the reactions in Denmark vary on a spectrum from astonishment over frustration to anger. Because after all, President Trump did invite himself to Denmark. This was in July. His own invitation was followed up by an official invitation from the Royal Danish Court and Queen Margrethe II the very next day. And since then, huge resources have been allocated to preparing this visit. And now it seems to have been turned into a diplomatic crisis between the Kingdom of Denmark and its closest ally, the United States.
And meanwhile, the people of Greenland are kind of trapped here. Do they feel they've become a bit of a political football?
Yeah, you could put it that way. I would say that people in Greenland first reacted to the offer by the US president of buying their home country with a sort of disbelief. And then came all the jokes on social media. And then when Mr. Trump himself was quoted as, he said to American broadcasters that he actually was considering buying Greenland, then this disbelief turned to concern. Because Greenland, it might be a huge landmass. It's the world's biggest tiny population. Only about 56,000 people live in Greenland. And people, of course, now are worrying that Greenland will become a ball kicked around by big powers like the United States and China. Both of these countries are very interested in what's going on in the Arctic region now that the ice is melting and new routes of transportation are opening. It's possible to look for natural resources and so on. So people in Greenland are definitely concerned.
Obviously, Donald Trump saw a potentially good real estate deal here, partly because things are changing in Greenland and the economic prospects are perhaps changing. Do people there talk about this? You know, that our economy could change as a result of climate change.
Well, I would say the official Greenland has been talking about this for the past decade and hoping that minerals that could be discovered somewhere in Greenland or offshore could turn the economy around, could result in Greenland being economically independent from Denmark, which it isn't right now, and could eventually lead to self-rule. However, it has turned out that it's very difficult to do mining and to do offshore drilling in the Arctic, simply because it's in the Arctic, because of the climate here. And big energy corporations haven't really been able to find the oil and gas that they were hoping for. So I would say the Greenlandic dream of independence and self-rule is probably somewhere in the distance.
Stefan, live from Greenland, thanks very much for joining us here on BBC World News.